Joining us to discuss, Rabbi Brad Hirschfield. He's a Middle East analyst, and he's also the president of the National Jewish Center for Learning and Leadership. Good to have you back with us, Rabbi.
Good to be here.
How do you think Prime Minister Netanyahu should handle this?
I think he has to let them in. The truth is there is a law in Israel which keeps out those who support BDS, the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanction Movement. The Foreign Ministry has a policy, also encoded in law, that if that will have adverse effects on Israeli foreign policy, that law can be overridden. As offensive as it may be, as challenging as it may be, there is no question that, as Justice Brandeis said many years ago, the best antidote is more sunlight. Let them in, monitor it, and make sure. Representative Omar said she's going to learn. Good, then learn she should. And that would mean seeing a much wider range of facts than I suspect she wants to see.
I appreciate your optimism, that you take Omar at her word, that she says she's going in there to learn, because it's hard for many to imagine that they're going to come back with an accurate description or depiction of the realities on the ground, that they have an agenda going into this, and Israel is going to be on the defensive here, that Israel is now going to have to defend against whatever Tlaib and Omar come back with. So you get the sense that Netanyahu is damned if he does and damned if he doesn't, between a rock and a hard place, because if he doesn't let them in, that he's going to have to defend that.
So a little bit, that's the story of Israel for 70 plus years, and it pays to get ahead. Don't be on the defensive. You're absolutely right. Of course they have an agenda. These are people who have been very, very clear. The end of Israel as a Jewish state is their long-term goal. There is no question about that.
You think the Congresswoman have made that clear? That is their
Rashida
long-term
Tlaib has
goal?
said that publicly repeatedly. I think Representative Omar dances toward it, says things like it, and then stares into the camera with those big eyes like butter would melt in her mouth and says, oh no, I didn't really mean that. Well, at some point, when you keep suggesting it, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. But all that said, playing defense is not helpful. The trick here is get ahead of that curve, know who they are, don't respond defensively, and actually show them the best of what Israel has to offer. Not because they'll suddenly fall in love with Israel and support its right to exist, but because all of a sudden what they see as 100% of the story, at best, becomes 50% of the story. And that would be a colossal sea change.
So kill them with kindness. Kill them,
or at least smarts. I don't know about kindness, I'm not that nice a person, but at least with sophistication.
Hit them over the head with the realities and the facts on the ground and force them to confront that. Now, it's interesting because the resolution itself is very clever because it doesn't actually mention the BDS movement or Israel specifically. She's crafted it as an ode to free speech, if you will. But is there any doubt in your mind that this is an anti-Israel resolution?
No. That's a simple answer. I don't think it's only that, but I don't think you also have to be Lee Zeldin to think that these comments that she made aren't controversial at all. Whatever you think about Israel and Palestine,
you have such a list to go to.
But whatever you think about Israel and
the ones
Palestine,
supporting
to
Hamas,
suggest that this has anything to do with an analogy to Nazi Germany, all I can say is that once again, Representative Omar is either showing the world how poorly educated she is, or how much more hateful she is than she wants to admit. You can take a lot of positions, and I actually, as opposed to BDS as I am, do not believe that all BDS is necessarily anti-Semitic. In this case, however, given the track record of the words that have consistently been used, it's simply crazy to compare whatever you think about Israel to Nazi Germany. As I said, she either doesn't know any history or actually is concealing a great deal more hate than she wants to admit.
Well, you know, she is an American congresswoman, and she's supposed to be representing the people of Minnesota. How does this help her constituents? What does this anti-Israel position and a trip to Israel and fighting to boycott Israel do to help her constituents back in Minnesota?
And that's why we have elections every 2 years. I don't think it does anything for them. But rather than rage at her, I would ask exactly that question in about 16 months' time and ask, while the people of Minnesota needed their lives improved, what happened given that their representative from her district spent all of her political capital and time and every bit of exposure she could get venting rage as opposed to making their lives materially better?
All right, Rabbi, thank you so much. Appreciate that discussion, as always. Rabbi Brad Hirschfield.